Yeah, for those of you who just walked in, there's a sign-up sheet for cases 2023, 15 through 17 for the 4600 Main Street project. If you want to speak, please sign up in the back there. Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Skokie Plan Commission meeting for August 3rd. Tonight, before we begin, I will call the attendance. Commissioner Osley,
Here.
Commissioner Manchella is absent. Did she call it? Okay. Commissioner Scott Berman.
Here.
Commissioner Franklin.
Here.
Commissioner Gupta.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Jivanyahe is absent. Commissioner Jeff Berman.
Here.
Commissioner Ross Matei,
Here.
and I'm here, and we have a quorum. Thank you. Just before we begin, I want to let you know that the Plan Commission is an advisory board to the Board of Trustees. Our vote tonight, or decision tonight, is a recommendation to the board and is not final. So those who wish to go to the board meeting and attend the final hearing for these cases, they meet on the first and third Monday of every month. Separately, if you want to sign up to get notification of these meetings, the sign-up sheet will be over there, and you'll be notified. First order of business is the approval of the minutes from the last meeting. Commissioner Jeff Berman moves. Second. Scott Berman. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Minutes have been approved. Thank you. First case tonight is case 2023-13P, a special use permit at 4155 through 59 Main Street to obtain an approval for a special use permit for services to the elderly and disabled except primary office use. This is the Hammered Healthcare Alliance, is that correct? Yes. And is the petitioner here tonight? Hi, good evening. Can we have your name, please, and address?
Chief Executive Officer of Hammered Health Alliance.
Okay, can you raise your right hand? I'll swear you in. You affirm that the testimony you give tonight is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth to help you?
Yes.
And is there notice and order, Council?
Notice is proper and correct.
Okay, thank you. Please, would you give us an overview of your project?
Yes, so Hammered Health
Could you
Alliance.
speak into the microphone, please?
Hammered Health Alliance is a non-for-profit based in Illinois. We have been around for 31 years. I am the executive officer. I've been with the company for 14 years. I am a licensed practitioner, and we are a federally funded organization. One of our programs that we hope to expand into Skokie, Illinois, is our adult daycare program. The program is for older Americans to come to our center on 4159 Main Street through shuttle services during our operation hours, which will be Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. We will not be open on weekends. This is a place where our older Americans will be able to get services in terms of nurse programs, socialization. Really, it's a program to get individuals to come into a place to avoid their depression, their isolation, and come have some socialization activities under our program staff. Like I said, we are a federally funded program through our human resources, and I'm also we also provide primary care, mental health services to our members. This will be one of the things that will be, again, provided to this program of adult daycare in terms of long-term primary care services through our other satellite offices that are based in DuPage County and Cook County.
Okay, this is not a medical clinic.
It is not a medical clinic, it is an adult daycare program.
Okay, so no medical service will be provided, like blood pressure taking or temperature taking or anything like that?
No, those are vitals, and those are mandated through the Illinois Department on Aging. This program will be under the Illinois Department on Aging.
Okay. Very good. Any questions of the petitioner? None? Okay. If you don't have anything further to add, I'm going to ask the staff to give us a report.
Sure,
Okay.
thank you so
All
much.
right, thank you. And the staff being, yes.
Who's it?
Jose Acosta, welcome to the Plan Commission.
Good evening, Commissioners and Chairman Luke. My name is Jose Acosta. I'm the Community Development Intern here at the Village of Skokie. And I'd like to ask that the staff report be accepted into the record as written.
So granted.
This is regarding case 2023-13P for site plan approval at 4159 Main Street. Obtaining a special use permit enables the site to be redeveloped for permissible uses within the zoning district aimed at promoting economic growth and redevelopment in the area. The Hamdard Health Alliance is not a nonprofit organization that helps to enhance the health and overall well-being of families and individuals in our communities by providing culturally responsive healthcare services. Currently, they are seeking a special use permit for an adult daycare center located in the B1 Service Commercial District on Keeler Avenue along Main Street. The plan is to merge and restructure two existing single-story commercial spaces to cater services to the elderly and disabled. The surrounding properties include other businesses in the B1 Service Commercial Zoning District and homes in the R1 and R2 single-family housing districts. Situated beside a carry-out restaurant and an upholstery store, the site faces an R1 and R2 zone single-family housing right across the street. And the proposed parking requirements, building height, yard requirements, and site improvements will adhere to the B1 Service Commercial District zoning requirements, or as otherwise allowed with relief. For this location, the Traffic Engineering Division requires a minimum of 8.4 parking spaces, out of which one should be designated as handicap accessible. The petitioner is seeking relief from section 118-212 of the zoning code, which mandates 9-foot wide parking stall widths. The petitioner proposes to maintain the current parking dimensions below the ordinance requirement, allowing for a total of 12 parking spaces, all 8 foot wide, one of which is handicap accessible. Furthermore, the petitioner has come up with a bus shuttle system to transport clients to and from the location, alleviating the need for additional parking spaces. For those who don't drive, the site is easily accessible by foot, bike, or public transportation. There are sidewalks along Main Street and nearby neighborhoods, as well as ADA ramps and tactile warning indicators at intersections. Bike lanes are also available on Main Street, and the site is conveniently located just 4 blocks east of Pace Bus Route 215 and is within walking distance of other businesses and services. Emergency access is available on Main Street, Keeler Avenue, and the alley behind the site. And in general, this special use permit is consistent with the intent of the comprehensive plan and zoning for the site. Staff recommends that the petitioner's request for a special use permit for the elderly and disabled, except primarily office uses at 4159 Main Street, be approved based upon the proposed finding of fact and subject to the recommended site plan approval conditions that follow. The first one would be prior to the hearing of the subject case before the Board of Trustees, the petitioner must revise the proposed site plan to indicate the relocation of the bike racks so they orient east to west on Keeler Avenue, 90 degrees from the current position. And number 2, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the petitioner must comply with the Village of Skokie ordinance and install a fire alarm system and submit plans to the Skokie Village Building Department. And finally, I kindly request that the special use condition in item 1B of the staff report regarding the removal of the asphalt on the parkway be omitted from the report, as the petitioner has already addressed this in the site plan.
Any questions?
Few
Commissioner
questions.
Berman.
First, when you said they've already addressed it, they are removing the asphalt regardless of whether it's a condition.
Yes, sir.
Okay, number 2, I didn't quite understand looking at the schematic of where the bus loading and unloading is to be. Is that on Keeler? Is that on Main? Is that in the parking lot behind?
I think that would be a question for the petitioner.
I'll wait.
Okay, I'll bring the petition back up.
Okay, and another question is, what's the capacity of not the capacity for office use, but the capacity of care services for the number of people that were
I believe it is somewhere around 10 to 15.
Small.
Could be wrong, but
Okay, I'll ask the petitioner, that's fine.
Okay. All right, any other questions of staff? Thank you very much
thank
for
you.
a concise presentation. Okay. Petitioner, please come back up.
Hi, that was just a couple of quick
Well,
questions.
So you've heard the staff report and comments. Do you have any rebuttal to the staff report?
I do not.
Okay, question, Commissioner,
Just a couple of quick questions. What is the care capacity of the facility? How many people do you expect to serve?
We expect to serve 125 seniors for the fiscal year '24. However, that is not on a daily basis. On a daily basis, we hope to have a census of between 15 to 20 older Americans coming.
And the seniors that are coming, they're coming by carry van or by a little bus that's bringing them?
So we have, right now, our transportation fleet is 3 vehicles, and so they will be using our vehicles to bring them. They'll be, drop-off and pickup will be at the back of the building.
In the parking area in the back toward the alley?
Correct.
Okay.
all right. Okay, anything else? Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner Matei, you had your hand up first.
To Scott's question related to number of your guests, so to speak. What is the square footage of the building? I see the total was 12,707, but that's not the building, that's the entire parcel, correct?
That is, if I can answer that question, that is correct. We're using 1/3 of the building. We have, that's our permit for 1/3, so it's about 2,400 square feet.
Thank you.
Commissioner Jeff Berman?
What is the staffing to guest ratio, and how many staff members are you gonna have throughout the day?
We have 7. Once we become, as our numbers go up, we'll be adding staff numbers. So
So-
currently, we have 7 members, 401 members.
Okay, and is the 7 there each and every day, all day long?
That is true. Yes, that is accurate.
So is there 7 cars then? Is that gonna be in the lot typically?
No, so the 7 are actually using public transportation.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, Commissioner? Okay, thank you very much. At this time, is there anyone in the audience who has a comment or question on this case? Please come up. Not seeing any? Okay. I'm open for a motion on case 2023-13P. And one for the relief, okay. Okay. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved.
I'll second.
Second, thank you. Okay. Commissioner Osley,
Aye.
Commissioner Scott Berman.
Aye.
Commissioner Franklin.
Aye.
Commissioner Gupta,
Aye.
Commissioner Jeff Berman,
Aye.
Commissioner Matei,
Aye.
and I'll vote aye. And on the relief, do I have a motion on the relief?
Moved.
Okay. Move. Second, and the second? Do I
I'll
have a
second.
Thank you, Mr. Matei. Call for the vote. Commissioner Osley,
Aye.
Commissioner Berman,
Aye.
Commissioner Franklin,
Aye.
Commissioner Gupta,
Aye.
Commissioner Berman,
Aye.
Commissioner Matei,
Aye.
and I'll vote aye. Okay. Motion passes. Again, this case still has to go before the Board of Trustees at a future date. Thank you, and good luck with your project. Okay, next case is case 2023-14P, a special use request for 5237 Tui Avenue to obtain approval for a special use permit for outdoor dining, and is the petitioner here. Please come up.
Hello.
Is this on behalf of Zhao O Kahani?
Zia Ul Ghani.
Okay, thank you. And would you give us your name and address, please?
5237.
Your name first.
My name is Zia Ghani,
Okay.
and the address is the location for 5237 West Toohey Avenue.
Okay, sir, raise your right hand. Do you affirm the testimony you give tonight is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you?
Yes.
Counselor, is there notice in order?
Notice is proper and correct.
Thank you. Okay, could you give us an overview of your restaurant and your outdoor dining proposal?
Bonchon is a franchise. We have 240 locations in nationwide. I just opened in Skokie almost 8 months ago. So we have a extra space on my right corner side because it's a corner location. So we're trying to open outside dining. So that's the permit we applying for.
Okay. So you've been here for 8 months? How's it been for 8 months?
Pretty good.
Good, okay. Let's see. Any questions for the petitioner? Yes, Commissioner Osley.
Just always, whenever we talk about outdoor dining, I'm preempting my colleague, but trash is always a concern. So I know there's been indication for trash receptacles, but I would like you to describe your plan for the policing and removal of the trash. But also, I'm curious as to whether or not you plan on adding any staff to support the space, and specifically with regard to waste removal.
So once we open in dining, right now we have Monday to Thursday, 8 people's working. Hold 11 to 11 o'clock. We extend the time for since last week. But after when dining open, we put extra 2 person in outside for serving dining, and end of the day take care of the garbage removal every shift, and basically every 4 hours we check the those things we can take care of it.
So just to clarify, you're suggesting that the addition of this space would represent 2 additional employees?
Yes, for especially weekends and weekdays we can put 1 extra person on it.
Question, Paul.
Questions? Yes, Commissioner.
Why the number of seats? Was that a decision based on square footage, or did the village cause you to make that decision, or was that a labor decision?
For outside,
Yes.
we're planning minimum 16 to 20 people more, and it's pretty good space over there
No,
outside.
you would like to add more tables after this?
Yes.
Aha, so you're coming to us with the initial proposal to only have these 4 tables, but then ultimately you'd like to double that?
No, we offer like 4 tables, which is like 16 people basically.
And that's adequate for your service, even though you have more square footage that you
Yes.
can put more tables in?
Yeah, but I don't want to congest it, so make it a space and easy to after that take care of it.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, if you'll have a seat, I'll have the staff present its report. Mike Wojtek, Village Planning.
I'd like to request that the staff report for case 2023-14P be accepted as written. Just a few modifications we'd like to see here. This was developed for outdoor dining. It was just waiting for a tenant to utilize it. So the pad is in place. We would like to see the area defined better with some landscaping or some railings around that's the north side, and then on the west side. Forestry would like to see a tree planted in this area between the garbage dumpster and then where the concrete stops. So they can see the tree here to add some shade for dining.
Is there a bicycle rack too, or?
There's bike parking is present at
Okay.
the shopping center already. That was installed when Jack's Corner was developed several years ago now. And then Forestry noted that there is a dead tree in the parkway on Toohey Avenue over here that we'd like the petitioner to replace. And they also identified room for another tree within this landscaping median between the parking and open sidewalk on Toohey. So they want to have another tree put into that area. Beyond that, not much else to say. We already talked about trash, and it is provided at the site.
Okay.
Looks like there's actually two trash containers. There's one by the door and then one over by the,
And there haven't been any complaints, of the site in the last, since it opened 8 months ago?
I've heard nothing.
Okay.
So assuming we pass this, you want us to include the condition for 3 additional trees? One in the picnic area, one to replace the one on the street, and another one on the street?
Yes, we have three, the first 3 recommended special use conditions are
It's in the report.
that these trees, planted, and we're just asking by no later than November 30th of this year. We feel that's enough time, this will go to the board, and by the time it's past the board, they can get the tree in before it gets too, cold outside the plant. And then we just got standard outdoor dining special, conditions for the 4-hour patrolling of the area and removal of litter, hours of operation, and months that it can operate, so they still have to adhere to the standard regular conditions for outdoor
Well,
dining.
there's no music or speaker system out there?
All I've seen is that there was just gonna be some lighting.
Okay.
There was no mention of, in their submittal, there was no mention of speakers
Okay.
attached to the wall.
Any questions of staff? Okay, thank you. Mr. Kahani, is that right? Please come back up. So you've read the staff report, and you agree with the recommendations to put the trees and the landscaping and everything else in?
The trees and landscaping just for the, I think, the landlord of the building.
But it's gonna be taken care of?
Yes,
Okay.
Yes.
You have his assurance that it'll be taken care of?
yes.
Okay. Any other questions of the petitioner? Okay.
I do.
Yes, Commissioner.
So we just talked about the trees, but also the fence around that area, is that yours or is that the
I don't have any
plan-
fence.
No, I know you don't.
I think Starbucks on the other side of the corner have a fence.
Did I misunderstand that there was a request that this area be somehow
Mike, was there
denoted?
trees
It's a
or
condition.
fence?
So when we were reviewing this, we, discussed that along the north side, and then along this, there's a driveway here that provides access for waste pickup. So along there, we'd like to just provide a little bit more of a feature that delineates the outdoor dining area from that driveway, and then provides something in here, where maybe you have either a gate or a railing
Okay.
with some like decorative planters around it.
Sure.
Just to give a little, separation
sure.
between the sidewalk
Yeah.
and the outdoor dining.
That's not the issue, yeah.
Thank you.
So is that okay, Commissioner?
No, that's great, thank you.
Okay, okay, good, thank you. All right, thank you very much. Is there anyone in the audience who has a comment or a question? Yes, please, come forward. Give us your name and your address, please.
My name is Lauren Gradnicki. I live at 8818 Colmar. I had a couple of questions about this. First of all, I'm not familiar with this particular site. Is this on the north side or the south side of Tui?
South side of Tooten.
So then, yeah, and then the tree will be there.
It's where Jack's Restaurant used to
It's
be.
Jack's Place, right, next to the, where the Starbucks is.
Across from Pep Boys. Across
Okay,
from the
right
Holiday Inn.
next to the Starbucks, you said?
Right.
Okay,
Yes.
so then the tree will shade, yeah. So then also about the trash, I guess the question is more for the petitioner. Are you gonna be using reusable plates and reusable cups, or are you gonna be using disposables?
We can ask him to answer that when he comes up, but you can ask us.
Okay,
Talk to us.
Because if he's using reusables, then there's a lot less chance of it blowing away. And then there's less trash to pick up because you just have people busting the tables.
Well,
in.
he'll still be responsible for picking up the trash.
Right, but I'm just saying there's like, you don't consider the plate to be trash if it's getting put in the dishwasher. But if you're gonna throw it in the garbage and it might blow away, then there's a bigger chance of there being trash just left there. I guess that was my point.
Well, I don't think we can force him to use any particular type of,
I'm just putting it out there.
okay, that's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Have a question or comment? Okay, thank you. open for a motion on case 2023-14P, special use permit at 5237 Tui for outdoor dining. Do you have a motion? Commissioners Jeff Berman,
I make a motion to accept the staff report as
do
presented.
I have a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Gupta, thank you. No more comments and questions? Call for the vote. Commissioner Osley,
Aye.
Commissioner Scott Berman.
Aye.
Commissioner Franklin,
Aye.
Commissioner Gupta,
Aye.
Commissioner Jeff Berman,
Aye.
Commissioner Matei,
Aye.
now vote aye. The motion carried again. This case still has to go before the board. All right. Now we come to three cases that are related cases. 2023, 15, 16, and 17 at 4600 Main Street. Now, due to the interest that's generated by these cases tonight at the meeting, I'm gonna ask that those who come up to speak at the citizens' comments at the end, I'm gonna limit your time to 3 minutes, okay? And I'll call the people up as in order of those who signed in. So, with that being said, is the petitioner here tonight? So case 2023-15P is a zoning map amendment. Case 2023-16P is a subdivision of the site. And case 2023-17P is site approval plan. And, yes, sir, whom do we have tonight?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Always a pleasure to be here. I need to get used to your new system here for 1 second.
It's rather high-tech, isn't it?
Where's the button? Go to presentation. That's why I've got experts with me. All right, thank you. Again, Mark Gershon, always a pleasure to be before the Plan Commission. This is a project
And,
that,
sir, for the record, you are the attorney for the petitioner.
attorney for the petitioner, and if you'd like, I could have everyone who's presenting be sworn in at once, or would you rather that we swear them in individually?
We'll swear them all in chorus. Everybody stand up,
Sounds good. So everyone who's presenting, please stand up.
please. All right, gentlemen, good evening. Raise your right hand, please. Do you all affirm that the testimony, ma'am, do you all affirm that the testimony you give tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth to help you? Okay. Counselor, is there notice and order?
Notice is proper and correct.
Very good. Please continue.
Thank you. So I'm here on behalf of Lewis and Associates, number one LLC, as applicant for both the subdivision rezoning and site plan approval. And we appreciate that you brought all three of those items so we can consider them together. Lewis is the contract purchaser of the property, and as with most developers, will convey the project to the development entity for its development. Our team, who were all just sworn in, Barry and Alex Seidel with Lewis and Associates, Brad Schlosser, Keith Lee, and Sydney Surwatt with Fitzgerald Associates, our architects, Lue Abuna, who has been here many times before, and myself. We have others available if there are questions.
Okay.
So, we've already talked about what the three items are. Again, there's a subdivision consolidation, which we'll walk into in a little more detail. It's identified in your staff report. Also required by your code for us to consolidate this into one subdivision and one zoning lot. As part of that, we have to consolidate the zoning by rezoning the northern portion to R4, and we've also requested site plan approval. So, the subdivision, I think, is pretty straightforward, so I'll skip by that. But the rezoning, as I said, we have a parcel that is partially R4 and partially R1, both of which allow for townhome developments. There's, this project has gone through a long process that we'll talk about. I think one of the very positive results of that process, and this has been going on for almost a year and a half with the community. One of the positive results of that process is that this project is significantly reduced in density. In fact, as you will see later, we have a lesser density than the adjacent townhome and multifamily developments near us. And we think that gives you a good sense of how much this project is tried to work with the community. As indicated in the staff report, in our submissions, et cetera, we meet all the standards for rezoning. Also consistent with your comprehensive plan, which designates this area for other residential uses. And chapter 8 of that comprehensive plan includes the townhomes and multifamily residences as part of other residential uses. So it's consistent with your planning for this property. Just to give you a good sense of the project, we're right there in the middle. You can see the R4 and the R1. We're surrounded by the B3, R4, R2, and within a block, we have CX, TX, and B1 districts, as well as more R4 property. Similarly, on the site plan approval, we meet the standards and requirements for site plan approval. High-quality residential development. This is a project, as you will hear, that's been designed to create a very high-end townhomes for this community. We think as a result, it will have significant added value to the area. One of the biggest changes in this project from what was discussed for almost a year here is that we have now removed all of the multifamily from this housing. That notwithstanding that the southern half of this project is already zoned R4, notwithstanding that we have significant multifamily development immediately across the street from us, a direct response to concerns raised by the community and suggestions from the Appearance Commission that we meet with that community to address those issues. As I said, these uses are allowed in both districts, and I think you'll see from the plan, and I'll let the architects go through that the significant advantage here of the quality landscape and design of this project will be quite important for this area. And one of the biggest changes on this is also improving our Main Street frontage from the original plans. So when we start to talk about the status of the project, the first thing I'd like to do is to really compliment your staff. This project, as you know, has gone through a couple of different development directors and staffs here, but one of the things that has really happened as a result is that it has been modified and improved on numerous occasions to address concerns raised by both the staff and the community. As recently as in the last week after we met with community representatives. But the status, we originally came to the Appearance Commission and submitted a 5-story multifamily development in 2 buildings with townhomes behind that. We had recommendations from the Appearance Commission to do 2 things. To one, work with the neighbors to consider their recommendations to modify it and to reduce the density, and also to look at the overall plan with the staff and the community. And that's exactly what has been done here. We recognize and respect that there are people who you will hear tonight, likely, would like to see open space here, would like to see this as undeveloped. But the reality is that that's not what's gonna happen on this project. This property is for, is there and appropriately to be developed. And so we wanted to make it the best possible development there. Before you, as I said, we had a community meeting last week. You're gonna see a lot of comments and changes based on that community meeting tonight. And we'll walk through those individually. I think one of the biggest things you can see on a difference here with this project is that after all that hard work with staff, we're very proud of the fact that all 3 staff reports recommend approval for the subdivision, for the rezoning, and for the site plan. And I can tell you in a year and a half later, that was hard-earned, and quite honestly, created significant additional cost to the developer, but we were pleased to see it. We've already gone over the notice and the notice affidavit. I would ask that our applications, our supporting documents, copies of this presentation, which you have before you, and a digital copy which the staff will have. Those include resumes and bioinformation on our experts. I'd ask that all of that be entered into the record.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
It's all been submitted, right?
All been submitted, right. I think to go back just a little bit, and, just to indicate that as you see tonight, we have addressed those comments and recommendations, that we received from community members, worked hard to review some of the parking issues that were identified. We looked with the village staff and with our experts on how traffic is handled. One of the things that was interesting as we went to do that was to find out that the other multifamily in this area, without checking every single building, but I believe we checked 7 or 8, you'll see that in our plan before, none of them have what your code requires for parking. So we're not surprised that there's concerns raised by the community about parking in this area, but our project does meet all of your parking requirements. From a visual perspective, and we talked with some of the staff and others in the buildings there, it does appear that many of those buildings don't even have a 1-to-1 parking ratio in their buildings, and we have a 2-to-1 in each townhome plus our visitors parking. The other thing that was raised was concerns about the density. I think that you will be pleased to see, and whether the density was appropriate for this area, et cetera, you'll be pleased to see that we went out after that meeting, because we respect the concerns raised, and checked the surrounding building properties, and we are 50% or less of the density that you find in those surrounding properties. This really is a significant reduction over what's there, and again, I understand, there's always a desire to see nothing here and no development, but we hope that the Plan Commission will respect the amount of effort and the cost that went into reducing the density to that extent. We also, do want to mention, because there was at least one concern raised, and it's a concern raised online, that we have, I believe the quote was, leapfrogged over the Appearance Commission. Could not be less true. The Appearance Commission chair specifically requested that we come back to the Plan Commission first, to have them review our requests. We absolutely have to go back to Appearance Commission for their review and approval, and we are subject to that review and approval. So, I'm not gonna go through all of your findings of facts and standards right now. You know them well. I've got them up here on this page and the next. I think, again, you're gonna hear throughout our presentation how we meet each of these standards, and how this project benefits both, it supports not only the surrounding residential area, but also the retail, restaurant, and commercial properties that are a block to the west of us. And we're also addressing, there's been historic complaints about the impact of a school in this area. It's a great school, but it also has the same issues that all schools have of having significant traffic at very specific times of the day, et cetera. And I think you'll see from our traffic engineer that this isn't a small change, it's a huge change in terms of numbers of the reduction in traffic from this project versus what's there right now. Another important thing that I know was important both to the property owner and to the staff when we started on this was returning this property to the real estate and property tax rolls to restore significant revenues to the village and also to have this property support fire, police, the community, et cetera. Just going through adequate public utilities, et cetera, public facilities have all been reviewed by staff. We meet all of those requirements, and those are in here. Same thing on the standards for the rezoning. I think, again, both the staff and our prior documents address those, and I'd like to get our property owner up here, I'm sorry, the developer up here, so I'm gonna stop without going through those. But my team is available, and we'll bring these back up on the screen at the end. If you have any questions about whether or not we satisfy any of these, You can obviously look at the staff report that says that we do, but also ask us any questions you have. So at this point, I would like to ask Barry Seidel from Luz and Associates to come up and talk about his connection with this project and with the community.
Good evening. Just introduce yourself with the microphone, please.
Good evening. My name is Barry Seidel. I'm a partner in the development company who's anticipating developing this property, Luz and Associates. The other individual is my eldest son, Alexander. He and I formed this company a number of years ago, and we have, over the years, I have background of 55 years of experience in the real estate industry, having started in the mortgage brokerage end of the business and slowly ebbed into the development side of the business. As you can see, a couple of the properties that I have been involved in. I've been involved in real estate throughout the country, here in Chicago, Washington, D.C., Florida, Indiana. My primary area of development has been multifamily development. I have built and or acquired almost 5,000 residential units throughout my career. My career really started here in Skokie. My first business venture was a hot dog stand on Oakton Street, just east of Skokie Boulevard, called the Corner Hut. That was 60 years ago when I first started out in the business community. In addition to which, my parents and myself spent 25 years living here in Skokie. We moved here when I was a teenager, and my parents spent many years, happy years here. We have developed a program, a design program called Green Space Development, which takes into consideration sustainability, the use of a home, if you will, is a little more than just a place to live. We've designed this development, this single-family townhome development, will have a clubhouse community room where people can come and socialize, as well as a work area, exercise area. We might even have a wine cooler area where people in the community that don't have their own private wine coolers in their unit can have a community wine cooler, have tags. They can put their wine here and bring friends and other people that live in the community. We've also designed two parks, one on the northeast and one on the northwest side of the property, where people can mingle, relax, and socialize. We take into consideration that today people don't all work in an office building. They like working at home, and we've designed these units. These are 2 and 3 bedroom units, and they will each have a work area in addition to the bedrooms, living rooms. They're all built at grade, no basements, and we've tried to design the units with comfortable colors and comfortable products to sort of work in with the community. We originally, as Mr. Gershon said, we originally designed 2 5-story multi-unit buildings along Main Street, and we designed a row of townhouses. I think there were 18 or 20 that faced the residents to the north. We've taken into consideration a lot of commentary, comments by staff, comments by the community. We have reversed the orientation of the townhouses from facing a wall of townhouses to only having 8 units, if you will, face 9 residential lots to the north. We've also taken into consideration the issue of height, if you will, and we designed the townhouses, they're all 3-story units, and we've designed a group of townhouses along Main Street that are all 3-story townhomes. There are 3, 4, and 5 in each building, if you will, and we've designed it as such where there are 3 or 4 spaces between the buildings that are open, where people can see through with green areas and so forth. We've also have 2 enclosed garages for each unit, plus we have guest parking along the perimeter. We've noticed that, as Mr. Gershon said, that the townhouses to the west of us have 1-to-1 parking, and they're all outdoors. And a number of the buildings along Main Street have all outdoor parking as well, and some are less than 1-to-1. So we've taken that into consideration in our review of the community and the neighborhood. And you'll notice that on 3 sides of the residences to the north of us, and who is our neighbors, we have a large green area, which is the golf course. So that helps add to the environmental acceptability of the location, if you will. It's close to other businesses along Skokie Boulevard and Main Street, and we feel that this will be a wonderful addition to the community, adding residents who will take part in spending their dollars, if you will, in the community, helping local businesses. And we think that the addition of the community and its addition to the tax rolls, which is quite substantial. From where it is today, it's 0, because it's a nonprofit organization that operates the facility, who is moving and staying in Skokie as well. So we're all happy to be a part of the community, and if there are any questions down the road, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
If you just, who's gonna come up next?
Our architect is coming in next.
Okay,
I have a question.
we'll save it for, we'll bring it back, okay.
Good evening. My name is Bradley Schlosser. I'm an associate principal at Fitzgerald Associates Architects. I'm here with Keith Lee. We're going to walk through our firm, a little bit of our firm, and then the existing site, and Keith will take it over for the design of the project. A little bit about Fitzgerald. Next month, we are 104 years old. We are based in Chicago. We also have an office in Denver, 2 years old. We are 53 employees, 17 licensed architects, 3 registered interior designers, plenty of sustainability professionals, and annually we do 125 plus studies around the nation for multifamily projects. This slide shows the density comparison that Mark was talking about. So in the middle, you'll see that we are 17.3 units per acre on our site, whereas across Main Street, it's double on every one of those sites, and then the townhomes to the west are 28 units per acre. A lot of other information on the slide that we don't need to go over. These are our sustainability strategies. We are looking at a multifamily Green Globes certification. With that, we are also looking at Fitwel for a healthy lifestyle. Energy code, obviously, we have to do reduce CO2 emissions. EPA WaterSense for plumbing fixtures and low water irrigation strategies. We do plan on having recycling on the site. We're using eco-friendly building materials, low VOCs, MERV 13 filters, all that sort of stuff. We are planning on being renewable energy ready for future possible solar PV panels. And then also we are planning on having all of the townhomes EV charging ready. And then there are 2 EV locations on the site in the parking near the parks. Probably everybody knows the site. This is the survey showing the lots that we're requesting consolidation on. The hatched portion is the existing school there. I'd say the thing to note here is that the existing school is 27 feet from the north property line currently, and Keith will explain why that's important. Just some context photos around the site. I'm sure everybody's familiar, don't need to go on this too much. One thing to note here, we're just noting the heights of these 2 buildings are across Main Street, one at 28 feet to the roof, and then one at 26 feet to the roof. Same context photos, these are from Kenton. And then this one is looking more, these 3 are looking more directly into the site. One thing to note here is the existing school in the upper photo, their roof is at 28 feet currently. And with that, I'll hand it over to Keith.
Thank you, Bradley. Good evening, everyone. My name is Keith Lee with Fitzgerald Associate Architects. I'm the project designer for this project. As mentioned by my presenters ahead of me, we're looking to provide a vibrant and sustainable development here at Main Street, for Main Street in Skokie. This proposal consists of 68 3-story townhomes, each with 2-car garage that will be equipped for future EV charging. The townhouses comprise a mixture of 24 2-bedroom units and 44 3-bedroom units. In addition, there will be a 1-story clubhouse in the middle to provide leisure amenity for the residents living in this development. As Bradley mentioned earlier, there will be numerous sustainable features that we will look into and to implement into this project. And to ensure smooth flow of traffic and prioritizing pedestrian safety, we limit the number of curb cuts going into the site to only 2, one at Kilpatrick and one at Kenton. So for drivers coming from Main Street, you will easily do a right turn into Kilpatrick and then another easy right turn into our site and get to their destination. Stop sign and stop sign will be installed at each curb cut so that to ensure pedestrian and vehicular safety. Furthermore, setback is very important in this development, and we have been paying special attention to it. As you see, for the front facing Main Street, currently we're proposing at least 25 feet setback to 29 feet setback from Main Street. And it's also surrounded or fronted by ample landscape in front of these townhomes. For Kilpatrick and Kenton, it is setback at least 21 feet to approximately 26 feet. Again, there will be plenty of landscape in front to screen before the front of the townhomes. And the front of the townhome, the entries will be facing outward to the street so that to minimize the view of garage door directly from the public street. As you see, the internal unit right now is running perpendicular to the loft, from north to south, so that to minimize its visual impact to the property at loft. And right now, these internal townhomes are set back 40 feet minimum from the loft property line. And at the corner of the road is actually set back 54 feet from the property lines. In addition to that, there will be a 6 feet wide landscape buffer plus solid wood fence to provide privacy and ensure to eliminate any acoustic concerns from both sides of the properties. Our townhome, as you see, arranged a group of 6 or less. And the 2 units at each end are set back 2 feet or 4 feet in order to break down the street facade, to break down the massing. One thing to note is the red dotted line, if you can see from this plan, it shows the existing school profile. As Bradley mentioned earlier, some portion of it is at 27 feet setback from the block property line. And our proposed townhome is at least 40 feet setback from the lot. So it's an improvement from what is existing out there. And to accommodate visitor parking, we are offering 22 guest parkings on site. 2 of them will be with charging stations ready provided at the site. Our traffic engineer, Lorraine, will provide more in detail, elaborate more in details on the traffic aspect and parking analysis for the site later in this presentation. For the landscape, we also take into the consideration of sustainability. So the plant species we chose are all made native and adaptive with minimum irrigation requirement. And so for the stormwater detention, we're proposing underground chambers, as you see in this rectangle, black dotted line showing between the townhomes in the drive aisle. The drawings have been submitted to city engineer for their review, and so far we haven't received any negative feedback from the engineer. Since the appearance commission earlier this year, our team have been pondering the comments and feedbacks and recommendations from the neighbor, from the city. We would like to highlight some of the changes again that we made here. First, we have changed from 2 5-story apartment buildings to rows of townhomes facing Main Street. These townhomes are 3 stories instead of 5 stories. And we reduced the number of total units from 158 to 68. There's a 40% reduction in height and 57% reduction in density. The townhome height right now is measuring 32 feet to top of roof, which meets the zoning requirement for R1 and R4 building height requirement. As we mentioned earlier, for this proposal, we have shifted townhomes on the loft side of the property further down. We used to propose a setback of 30 feet. Now the setback is 40 feet. And so there's a big improvement there as well. And as mentioned earlier by Barry, we're proposing 2 park spaces at the corner of the site. Instead of providing more townhomes, this park area has a total of 3,600 square feet to provide for community use, for this residence use, and also to promote this healthy living style. Lastly, as mentioned, the townhomes proposed are perpendicular to the loft property line. So right now it's only 8 individual townhome units facing sideways to the 10 single family homes at loft. Previously, we're proposing 26. So we have been taking note of the neighbors and village recommendation and make these changes. Also, I would like to point out from this aerial is the existing 3 stories and 4-story buildings south of Main Street that Bradley mentioned earlier, and also the existing townhomes development west of our proposal. And the commercial and retail entities are just a block away west of our site plan, our site. This is what we previously proposed. As you see at the top is the loft elevation facing the single family homes at loft. It's rows of townhomes And then the second image in the middle is the 5-story apartments facing Main Street. And the bottom left is the view from Canton. Bottom right is the view from Kilpatrick. This is what we previously proposed. And this is what we currently propose. As you see, the height has much lower height, and the density facing the lot property has much reduced. Talking about the exterior design, we have taken the aesthetic of this seriously and looking to how we can complement the existing context we found around the Main Street area. We're looking at proposing high quality masonry with architectural grade fiber cement panels. The color scheme we look at is commonly found in the local area, which consists of this light beige brick and red brick, with a touch of stacked stone. So that, again, we're trying to look at this as providing a warm and inviting look to these buildings.
Are you gonna make the same presentation to the Appearance Commission? Just- Correct, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
So, we're not gonna judge you on the appearance here, so
Understand?
this is just for informational purposes.
For information, and we want to express our intent here,
Okay.
so that we're
I mean,
aware.
they have the prerogative to ask you to change the design too.
Understand. To add a touch of elegance and variety to the facade, we have employed change of materials that is appropriate to the building scale and the context. This is the view looking from Main Street, along Main Street. And this is a view from Kilpatrick on the side street looking into our site. Once again, this is the comparison from what we previously proposed to what we currently proposed. The top shows a street elevation along Canton looking into our site. Across the street, across from the Main Street are the 4-story and 3-story apartment buildings. And to the right of our site, is the single-family homes, which are 2-story or 1-story single-family homes. Allow me to repeat the changes we made again. We have reduced the 5-story apartment building to 3-story townhome facing Main Street. From a setback of 20 feet, we increased to 25 feet facing Main Street. And facing the lot property used to be 30 feet, we now increased to at least 40 feet. And the existing school is at 27 feet setback from the lot property line. And comparing the aerial view at the bottom, to the right side is what we proposed today. You see that we feel very comfortably the scale of this building and the aesthetic fit very well and blend into the existing context or the R4 and all the neighbors here. Lastly, I would also want to reiterate, since the Appearance Commission earlier this year, we have taken note of the recommendations from the village and the comments from the neighbor, that our team have been working diligently with the city and also meet with the community and spend tremendous time and effort to look into alternative and making sensible measures to make this community-friendly development that is viable for the city, for the village, and appropriate to the neighborhood. I believe this proposal you see today is a vast improvement from what we are presenting before. Thank you for your time and look forward to any question you have. I'll pass the baton to Luay, our traffic engineer.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Luay Abuna. I'm a principal traffic engineer with the firm KLOA. We are located in Rosemont, Illinois. I've been practicing traffic engineering over 35 years. Appeared in front of the Planning Commission, Village Board, and Skokie over the years on many projects, and I'm pleased to be back in front of you again. Licensed professional engineer in the state of Illinois and also registered professional transportation engineer. I'll just briefly go over some slides here just to give you a summary of what we did and what the findings of the traffic study is. This aerial taken from the traffic report shows the location of the site relative to the surrounding roadway network. Main Street runs the east-west along the south property line of the property, Kilpatrick on the west, Kenton on the east, and then you have one block to the west, Skokie Boulevard, and the traffic signal at that intersection of Main with Skokie. This is the study area and the intersections that we looked at as part of assessing the adequacy of the roadway network and the impact that the development would have. The area in gray, again, denotes the site. You can see that the intersections of Main with Kenton, Main with Kilpatrick are under stop sign control. The signal denotes the intersection of Main with Skokie Boulevard and Bobolink Terrace, and Elm Street is also another intersection that have connection into the area. Main Street has bike lanes going both directions, east and west, with on-street parking. There are left turn lanes that currently exist on Main Street, serving traffic that would be turning north or south on Kilpatrick and north and south on Kenton. And Skokie Boulevard and Main Street is a high-capacity intersection with turn lanes all the way around, with Skokie Boulevard having 2 through lanes in each direction. As part of the traffic study, we took traffic counts at these key intersections, did those on a weekday when the school was in session, and those numbers obviously are hard to read, but they represent all the traffic movements that we observed and counted. Their morning counts as well as evening counts. Some of the things to note that there's more traffic obviously coming out of Kenton, turning left and right. That's related to the school traffic during drop-off and pickup activity. The traffic at the intersection Skokie and Main Street is high, which is representative of the operations of the intersection. Based on our analysis of the operations of all these intersections, the results indicate that everything operates within acceptable levels of service, within the carrying capacities of these intersections. We didn't note any points of congestion where traffic was backing up considerably. Obviously, with the school drop-off and pickup activities, there are those surges that can cause some delays, but the school has been doing a very efficient job in managing the traffic flow relative to the drop-off and pickup activities. One of the things that we do in any traffic study is estimate the traffic that a proposed development would generate. So the first row in this table represents the traffic that the proposed development would generate during the weekday morning peak hour, weekday evening peak hour, and daily traffic. So in the morning peak hour, that's over a 1 hour period. It's anticipated that the townhome development would generate 30 trips total in and out. So it's about 1 trip every 2 minutes. And in the evening would be 37 trips. When you compare that with what the school would generate, you can see clearly here that this development generates significantly lower traffic. That the removal of the school from this area and the introduction of the development will result in a net decrease in traffic and net decrease in impact, which obviously frees up more capacity for other traffic in the area to flow through the intersections. Again, Keith described this site plan very well. Access to the development would be internal to Kilpatrick and Kenton. There'll be one street running east-west, 24 feet wide, allowing 1 lane in and 1 lane out at either end. Traffic exiting the development will be under stop sign control. When we analyzed the increase in traffic from the proposed development, at the impact and its impact on the intersections, particularly Main with Kilpatrick and Main and Kenton, we found that this increase in traffic will not have a detrimental impact. And to be conservative, we left the traffic from the school as part of the background conditions, so we didn't remove that traffic, just to kind of represent worst case conditions. And even under that scenario, the analysis show that the intersections will continue to operate adequately. no significant backups. The turn lanes that are currently on Main Street will be adequate to accommodate the traffic entering the development. The parking evaluation was part of the traffic study that we conducted, and as you heard, the development will provide parking per the village code, both from a residential requirement, which is at 2 spaces per unit, as well as from the guest parking requirement, which is 0.5 spaces per unit for townhome units with 3 bedrooms or more. So the number of parking spaces will meet the village requirement. We also compared it to industry standards published by the Institute of Transportation Engineers, and the parking supply will meet both the average and the peak ratios as published by the manual. So finally, we have conclusions from the traffic study that I've listed here. The first one, again, based on the location of the site and on Main Street and proximity to Skokie Boulevard. We believe that the location is well located with respect to the both local and regional roadway system. As I indicated, the traffic from the development can be accommodated by the roadway system, and it's not going to cause any congestion. And when you compare it to the school, there'll be a significant reduction in the amount of traffic that will be generated. And the access drives being limited to 2, one on Kenton and one Kilpatrick, will be adequate in accommodating the traffic. And finally, the parking, again, meets the village requirements as well as industry standards. Thank you very much.
We appreciate your patience. Obviously, with a year and a half of going through this, there's a lot of background. We hope it's been very useful for you. I want to just summarize, rather than going through each of the standards, the findings of fact, we're happy, and again, we're very happy to go through them if you'd like us to. But just to hit some of the really critical issues on this, one of the backgrounds, obviously, you have standards related to sustainability, to impact on the natural area, et cetera. This project was submitted and proposed prior to there being a sustainability ordinance, but this developer, Luz and Associates, long before that was actually presented here, committed to going for Green Globe certification for this project and for meeting those requirements. I think you can get a sense, I'm not gonna go through all of it because the staff, they gave you a good idea of it, but things from electrical appliances, EV ready, EV chargers, all the things that Green Globes looks at, and there's just, as you know, hundreds of them. And we're meeting those without any obligation under your code to do so. Similarly, one of the things that we think is important, and questions that we heard from the community is this too tall? Is it too dense? I think you've seen, not only do we meet both the R1 and R4 height requirements for these buildings, but we're actually significantly less than the density there for other projects in the R4 district. And I want to emphasize something because, like Lue, he and I have been doing this kind of stuff for a very long period of time. I've actually never had a project where we reduced the project down by 57% of the original proposal. And that, I hope, is a good example of, the fact that we were listening, we paid attention to what was there, and we're willing to put literally their money where their mouths were to make that happen. Similarly, on affordable housing, our project again, well, the ordinance actually hasn't even passed yet, but we are again submitted before that project, but we have committed to meet the spirit of that ordinance and to provide for a donation based on that. And I'm not going through some of the simple stuff. You won't be surprised to know that we're gonna meet all the final engineering plans. There was one of the other issues raised at the community meeting, and the reason we added this to our presentation was whether or not there was adequate stormwater detention. We wanted to make sure people saw that. Typically, obviously, we work with the village's engineers who have to approve our projects to make sure we meet everything, but once again, we were listening. We wanted to make sure that people saw that that was there. I think the last, one that we heard a lot of were the concerns about parking and transportation here. Since our meeting last week, we've had multiple discussions, not only internally, but also with the village on those issues. One of the things that was raised was a concern, by one member of the community that well, it may have actually been two, but by two members of the community that the village's standards on parking, were not adequate, they were minimums. So, as you've heard from Louis' presentation, he went back on that issue and looked at not only the village's standards, but also the national standards. Your standards are significantly more strict than the national standards. So these aren't minimums, these are what I like to call Skokie standards. And we're very pleased that we're meeting those. And I wanna make sure it's clear to everyone, we are not requesting any variations. We're not requesting variations on height. We're not requesting a use that is new to this area. It's allowed in both R1 and R4. And we are proposing a project that's significantly less dense than the other projects that are in the area. Lastly, just to go over some of those benefits, we've heard from some of the commercial users in the area. You may hear from some of them tonight, but there, as you saw from the drawing, we are only 1 block away from a significant, actually it's really essentially less than a block because it starts before the end of the block, from the commercial and retail and restaurant uses. We believe that this is a great addition to that area. The reduced density and height we've talked about, the increased landscape, the open space, the improvements on stormwater detention. In terms of sustainability, again, that Green Globe certification, but other items as well, not required by Green Globes, the reduction in traffic generation, the EV charging stations in readiness, that we will have all electric appliances, and many others. We're also near walking and bike trails here, there's a bus line, and again, consistent with both the sustainability ordinance and the affordable housing ordinance, even though it does not apply to this project. And last but not least, because I've heard about this for quite a while, was the desire to get this property back on the tax rolls and supporting the community, and that was an important part of this. You know our 3 requests already. At this point, we'd like to turn this over to you and the community. Obviously, our team is available for questions, but we are requesting approval for our subdivision consolidation to consolidate the zoning by rezoning the northern portion to R4, and for site plan approval.
Thank you. At this
Thank
time,
you.
I'd like to ask Barry Seidel to please step up, come back up for questioning. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Seidel, now, these, townhomes, they're for sale, or are they for rent?
No, these are all for rent, sir.
All for rent?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That be the case, who will be maintaining the open green space?
We will,
Okay.
the owner of the property.
very
We
good.
will manage the property. This is one of 4 properties that we are presently involved with, and we've had a recent discussion that we used to have our own management company, construction company, and leasing company. A number of years ago, we cut down on those operations and hired third-party managers and leasing agents. But now with the volume of business that we're transacting, we are now presently going to form our own management and leasing operation. So we will have hands-on,
Okay.
everyday management of this property.
Do you have a plan for snow removal?
We will have a plan for snow removal. We will have places on site to remove snow, and when there is too much to be accommodated on site, we will have the snow removed. Yes.
Okay, because
We
we
do that on all
don't
our
want the snow
properties.
winding up in the neighborhoods.
Pardon me?
We don't want the snow winding up in the
Oh, no,
neighborhoods.
it'll be either on site or it'll be hauled off.
Okay.
If
Yes.
I can remind Barry, we actually had to submit as part of your requirements a snow removal plan, so that's part of our application.
Okay, very good. Any questions, Commissioner Berman?
Will parallel parking be allowed on the east-west internal drive that's on the north that abuts the residential property to the north.
No.
There's an east-west drive, so there's no parallel parking allowed there.
No.
So the.
That's a fire lane.
And I saw there was 2 lanes of traffic. Assuming that, I did not see then the multiple of guest parking that was identified. I saw internally, next to the clubhouse, there might have been 10 spaces.
There are, spaces around the clubhouse. There are, guest spaces in the north, east, and northwest corners of the property as well.
Separate from those parks that are in those
Yes.
corners.
Yes, sir.
I did not see those spaces.
Sure, Commissioner Bernie, it's probably the small print at the top.
Okay.
But, we do meet the village's requirements and the national requirements on visitor parking, and I wanna make sure 22, correct? 22 guest parking spots.
So the 22 are those 2 corners and then around the clubhouse?
Yes, sir.
And there is public parking on Main that I think you did indicate, and that will continue to be public street parking?
Yes, we have to remove one for the fire hydrant.
Okay.
And I would say one other item is that, obviously, a recommendation from staff, but we do not object to it. There's a recommendation, I believe in your packet, that this project not be allowed to park in the surrounding areas. Honestly, you do that on a lot of your new projects. There's a code requirement for that, and you've removed that. So these people will not be able to park in the neighborhood.
Very good.
Jeff is pushing over there, and I won't.
Any other questions? Mr. Berman?
This may be more for staff than anything, but in looking at, page 21 of your packet, I'm only seeing 2 trash enclosures for all of the tiers of condominiums, or I shouldn't say condominiums, but units. Is that portrayed correctly, or is that?
That's correct, sir. There are 2, one on each side of the clubhouse.
And is that for the entire complex?
Yes.
So how does the trash from the individual units wind up in those trash enclosures, and are those
People-
big enough to
People
accommodate?
dispose of their trash into those trash areas.
So the individual renters would take their East trash down and put it in those?
Yes.
And then will those trash enclosures be emptied by the village or by a private company?
Private company, sir.
Private company, okay. And I don't know, I guess a question for staff, but we've looked at that and it's adequate for it?
Staff has looked at it and finds it adequate.
Okay.
If in the event it is not adequate, they would have to provide the proper receptacles. We don't allow trash to sit outside receptacles.
Okay.
I know you know that, but for the benefit of everybody else.
Yeah, I know, but I thought I'd ask. And then one more question, Mr. Chairman, is, or Johanna perhaps, is the paving material, is it water permeable? Is it, on all the streets and driveways between the tiers?
Sorry, I didn't.
The paving material?
Is it permeable pavement, or is it hard asphalt?
Oh, the driveways will be hard asphalt. We have pavers throughout the development though.
But most of the driveways, the
Yes.
public ways will be asphalt,
Yes.
not permeable pavers.
Correct.
And if I could, to Commissioner Burns, your issue raised, we actually, and this did come up in a meeting with the neighbors, I think one of the advantages of this type of developments is that the owner of this project has an incredible incentive to make sure that it's maintained, that garbage is maintained, et cetera, because they are continually renting units here, and so it's as important to them as it is to anyone. So those are all critical issues to us to make sure that's taken care of.
One follow-up
Sir?
question?
You can save your comments for public comments, please.
One follow-up question is the leasing office, is that gonna be on site?
Yes,
Is
sir.
that in the clubhouse?
Yes.
What are the hours?
We'll have an office there.
What are the hours? Is that 7 days a week, 5 days?
I don't know that we've set the hours, if you will, entirely. I'm sure they'll be from 10 in the morning till 6 at night for a management company, typical 8 hours a day. And we will staff it 7 days a week.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Berman? Commissioner McKay?
A question is arisen, but I was gonna ask it. 2-bedroom, 3-bed, what is the projected rent?
Around 3,700 for a 2-bedroom and 3,900 for a 3-bedroom.
Thank you.
Commissioner Berman?
Do you own and manage any other rental communities like this? that aren't in multi-unit buildings that are in this townhouse configuration?
No, we have one, planned development similar to this in Des Plaines, as a townhouse development. And we also have a multifamily development in Des Plaines. And we've also been approved in the the city of Skokie, for 192 units, on Niles Center Road.
Do you know of any other communities like this besides the ones that you're planning here in Des Plaines? I don't know of any.
You
I'm
mean
looking
as
to
far as townhouse development?
townhouse developments
yes.
with rental.
Yes, sir. Townhouse, today is, we call it a single-family townhome.
Sure.
Similar to a single-family home, which is, in today's world, especially financially, many people would rather rent than own. Some, and many can't afford it. And we make it available for them. I think this is a great alternative to people that can't afford to have a single-family home, but it's very similar to that.
Okay.
Okay, any further questions of the petitioner? Commissioner Rosalie?
I just have one, which is, we've heard in great detail the reduction of the overall density and the reconfiguration of the scope of the project. I know there have been conversations and questions related to affordable housing, so I'm going to ask the question is, what impact did that change have on your plan for affordable housing? Neutral, positive, or negative?
It didn't have any substantial change. We had agreed to a certain percentage of our development, no matter how large or small it was, and we're sticking with that. We didn't change the percentage at all.
Okay, all right. Let's get the staff report, on the record. Thank you for your presentation. Staff report? Okay, Paul.
Mike's gonna do the subdivision.
I did the first two. Wow. Do a tag team.
So I'd like to request that staff report for case 2023-15P zoning map amendment be accepted into the record as written.
Granted.
Petitioners covered, I think, everything that is also written in my report, so I don't want to repeat that.
Okay, well, is there, you open for questions then?
I'm
Do you have
open
any
for questions.
of staff on the zoning amendment and subdivision, is that right?
So right now I'm just starting with the zoning map amendment, and then I'll speak about the subdivision. So,
Okay.
2023-16P subdivision case, I'm also accepting that be,
Granted.
requesting that be accepted as written.
Yes.
The only thing that was not mentioned with the subdivision was that there's also going to be a dedication of right-of-way along Kenton Avenue. Historically, you'll see on the survey, I'll go back into that. It's just it's technical things, but it's like the structure of the property, just to tell you why there's a dedication requested. Scroll down here. Okay, so here's the proposed plat, and you'll see that the southern, slightly less than half, is a separate subdivision from a large piece of land that was never subdivided at any point in history. It's just a parcel of, an old tract. That parcel continued out into Kenton Avenue. So there's a 33-foot wide piece of property that the school currently owns into Kenton Avenue.
Mhm.
And so we're just asking as part of this overall lot that this be dedicated as a public street as it should be. It's being utilized as a public street. It's got
Okay.
sidewalks, so.
That's still house cleaning?
Yes, we're just cleaning up technical. Throughout the village, we find things here and there historically that were not cleaned up at,
And
at that
petitioner's
time.
okay with that?
This is just fixing things, yes.
Yeah, okay.
And that's it for the
Okay,
subdivision.
any questions on, okay, thank you, Mike.
Good evening, Paul Reese, Planning Manager, Village of Skokie. I'd also like to speak about case 2023-17P site plan approval and ask that it be accepted into the record. with one modification that I'll get to in a second.
Okay, so accepted with the modification.
And similar to Mike, the applicant was very thorough in their presentation, and I won't repeat a lot of that. But I will say that site plan approval is required in this instance because modifications are being made to a building on a site of larger than 1 acre, and this is just shy of 4 acres. As mentioned, 68 townhomes of 2 and 3 bedrooms. And then one correction that I'd like to make regarding the affordable housing. So, as mentioned, the ordinance isn't in effect yet. If it were to be in effect, 5% of 68 units at 150,000 per unit comes out to 600,000, and the developer is offered to pay a fee, kind of in the spirit of the affordable housing and the goals of the village, in an amount of $450,000. As mentioned, the traffic engineering division has found that 150 parking spaces meet the parking requirement, and also as mentioned that residents and guests will not be eligible for zone permit parking. Forestry division has commented that a tree removal permit will be required prior to demolition, and that tree removal bond in the amount of $18,000, which may be reimbursed at the end of the project, depending on the trees planted. And finally, for the planning division, the planning division supports the proposed site plan approval request. The proposal will increase the housing supply in the Main Street corridor with the 68 new townhouses. A quick calculation of the school impact shows that the increase of school attendance to be minimal, using 0.33 kids per unit of attached housing, estimates 22 additional school-aged children from grade school to high school. Additionally, the construction will meet sustainability objectives and obtain Green Globe certification. And then also the pedestrian experience will also be improved by the new development. The entire Main Street frontage will better meet the sidewalk with human scale buildings and improved landscaping. And also the increased purchasing power of the new residents will only help the Main Street businesses, both to the east and west. So in conclusion, and as mentioned, the applicant will need to go to Appearance Commission after this, so we will work with the Building Inspection Services to schedule that at the next available Appearance Commission meeting. And finally, staff recommends that the petitioner's request for site plan approval to develop 68 townhouse residences, surface parking, and stormwater detention at 4600 Main Street in the R4 Family Housing Zoning District be approved based on the proposed positive findings of fact in the site plan approval and subject to the recommended site plan approval conditions outlined in my report.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of the staff? Question, yes, Commissioner Berman?
Recognizing that we don't yet have an affordable housing ordinance, it's still artificial to call these units $150,000 per. We know they're not. So we should address the 5% rule against what the actual value is, which is twice that at least. And therefore, whatever we apply as a multiplier against the 150,000, let's say 5%, as an affordable housing subsidy set aside, we should do that against an accurate number more.
Well, that
than the
150,000 comes from the proposed ordinance, and that's what's suggested in that ordinance. If you're paying in lieu fees, not if you're
Not the
the
actual-
value of the
not the actual
actual
value
unit
of
if you were building it on site. Yes.
Okay.
Commissioner Merman, the calculation is if you have less than 100 units, you can pay the fee in lieu. That's how the first reading.
I want the fee in lieu, that's fine, and I understand we don't have to set aside in the project. My concern was against the actual value, but it falls, if
Right.
what we're discussing is an applied value of 150 per unit and not an actual value, then I understand.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. Does that wrap it up, Paul?
It does, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Gershon, please. So you've heard the staff reports. Do you have any comments or questions or?
No comments or questions on the staff report. As I said, we've spent a very long time working with the staff on this project and with the community. We have no.
So no objections to it?
No objection to the staff report. I believe the one difference there is that, again, we're not subject to the affordable housing ordinance and won't, even when it becomes an ordinance, be. We've said from the beginning that we would do 3 units here. It actually comes out to 3.2, and so we're keeping that at the 150 for each of those units.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, at this time, I'll open up the floor for discussion. I will read off the names. Ms. Suzanne Phillips, please come up. Because the number of people who wishing to speak, I'm gonna ask you to limit your presentation to 3 minutes.
I will try my best, thank you.
And all questions should be directed to the commission.
Of course. I'd just like to read for the record a letter directed to the Village of Skokie Plan Commission that was signed in the past 3 days by 95 members of the community in opposition to this project.
This is the first time we're seeing this document?
It was sent by email this afternoon.
Okay.
Okay. Residents of the neighborhood encompassing 4600 Main Street have serious reservations about the site development plans as
Lift up your
proposed to the
microphone so we
village.
hear you better?
Sure, okay.
Thank you.
All right. Stand here.
I think that's good.
Residents in the neighborhood encompassing 4600 Main Street have serious reservations about the site development plans as proposed to the village. Primary concerns include the unnecessary zoning change requested, the significant building mass and lack of transitioning with the neighborhood, concerns about traffic and parking, and the overbearing industrial appearance of the proposed buildings. There is an opportunity to develop the site in a way that can make the neighborhood and the village proud, but the current plans fall far short of this mark. Below is a summary of the neighborhood's concerns regarding the current proposal. Number 1, zoning change. The petitioner is requesting to change the zoning for 58% of the site from R1 to R4, and the petitioner's statement of effects mischaracterizes the nature of the neighborhood in the interest of pulling one over on the planning commission. The statement mentions only the R4 zoning to the south and the single-family residences to the east, while making no mention of the R1 housing along the subject property's north boundary and along half its west boundary. In fact, 61% of the subject's property boundaries touch R1 and R2 zoning along its north, east, and west perimeter. Permanently changing the zoning of the entire lot to R4 irrevocably it changes the character of the neighborhood and opens the door to further overdevelopment in the future. If rezoned, future developers could raise the lot and develop dense multifamily housing, which would have a negative impact on the surrounding neighbors. Redevelopment of the subject property should be performed within the confines of the existing zoning designation, or it should be done under a planned urban development in order to protect residents who have lived in the neighborhood for years, decades, and lifetimes. Number 2, building mass and lack of transition. The current split zoning of the site and the low-density neighboring properties comprising most of the site boundary beg for appropriate transitioning between the development and the surrounding neighborhood. A footprint of 12 monolithic buildings, which are taller than any of the neighboring properties, does not achieve that goal. Placing buildings on the east and west borders across from low-density zoning with less frontage than along the high-density southern border does not achieve that goal. Erecting buildings that loom over the northern border does not achieve that goal. Even the larger multifamily buildings on the south side of Main Street that the petitioner references are more open and present more green space than the current proposal. The petitioners pat themselves on the back for reducing the density of the originally planned project by 67%, but they fail to mention that the 5-story apartment buildings they originally proposed along Main Street elicited zero support from any of the Appearance Commission members. A reasonable development plan could certainly include 3-story townhomes along Main Street, but it must provide a sensible transition at Kilpatrick and Kenton Avenues to respect the scale and privacy of its neighbors. Similarly, the townhomes proposed in the currently R1 zone must provide additional frontage or building setbacks from the north, east, and west property lines to provide appropriate transitions to the R1 and R2 zones. Single-family homes on the R1 lot would be ideal, but compromise between the petitioner and the neighbors should be sought. Number
Okay,
three.
you're coming close, taking over 3 minutes, but I allowed you time because I interrupted you before, so.
Thank you.
Quickly wrap it up.
Thank you. Traffic and parking. The petitioner has commissioned a traffic study, and their statement of effects indicates a positive impact to traffic when moving from the existing school to a 68-unit development. We believe this study may be flawed if it did not account for the presence of a traffic control officer and a pickup and drop-off plan for the parents. Parents are currently instructed to follow a defined traffic pattern. This allows for a calm, predictable traffic pattern that minimizes the impact to the neighborhood. Neither a traffic control officer nor a defined traffic plan will be in use by the proposed development. Neighborhood residents would appreciate and benefit from a summary of findings rather than a 109-page report that is targeted to traffic experts. It is also unclear if any evaluation has been made regarding pedestrian safety. Under current conditions, it's difficult crossing Main Street at Kenton and Kilpatrick Avenues, as most drivers do not respect the requirements to yield to pedestrians with the lack of signage and painted crosswalks. As the proposed development will increase both vehicular and pedestrian traffic, pedestrian safety should be a village imperative if the housing at these
Okay.
intersections is increased. It is our understanding the proposed development satisfies village minimum parking requirements, and the surrounding neighbors question whether that is sufficient for a property that seeks rezoning from low-density to high-density designations. Village requirements currently specify 0.5 guest parking spaces per 3-bedroom townhouse unit, with 0 spaces for 2-bedroom units. Considering that the 3-bedroom units are only 10% wider than the 2-bedroom units, it feels as though the equations have been gamed in order to minimize the required parking at the expense of the neighborhood streets. 22 guest parking spaces for 68 units seems inadequate. Point number 4, this is the last one, appearance. Lastly, we have serious concerns about the general appearance of the proposal. We understand the Plan Commission does not address appearance, but the petitioner's architectural choices are indicative of their overall indifference to the existing neighborhood. The proposed buildings do not match the neighborhood buildings, including the multifamily buildings to the south. These multifamily buildings are separate structures, the larger of which have open courtyards to soften and beautify them. The proposed building facades appear industrial, applied in a patchwork manner, and are overall lackluster in character. Townhouses with a softer, more welcoming appearance are encouraged to be considered before going back to the Appearance Commission. For the reasons stated above and for several other reasons not expressed here but held by neighboring residents, we implore the Village of Skokie Plan Commission to reject the petitioner's proposed development.
Okay, thank you. Fritz Ricketts? Fritz Ricketts, please. Mr. Ricketts? Fritz? Ann Ricketts? Ricketts? Brian Levinson? Good evening. Just state your name for the record.
Brian Levinson, good
Thank you.
evening, thank you. Glad to be before the commission again. I'm Brian Levinson, I'm a member of the Board of Ari Crown Hebrew Day School. I'm also a member of the Skokie Economic Development Commission. And I just wanted to point out a couple of issues, or reiterate them, that were mentioned in the presentation. One is Ari Crown's commitment when we went for our plan for our new site on Grosse Point Road. We made the commitment to the Village Board of Trustees as well as the Planning Commission to put this property back on the tax rolls. And one of the challenges of putting it back on the tax rolls is the ability for developers to develop an appropriate development that makes sense for them financially. The reduction in density, although has been a challenge for the developer and for the whole project, they clearly have attempted to meet the demands of the community while at the same time keeping the project viable from a developer's perspective, so it would allow the property to go back on the tax rolls. Speaking from an economic development perspective, everyone here knows the importance of the local businesses in that area along Skokie Boulevard, starting on Main Street as well, how impactful it could be to bring in an additional population immediately adjacent to that are walking distance to the 7-Eleven, to the sandwich shop across the street, to the fast food restaurants on Skokie Boulevard, to the gas stations. And I don't think that should be taken lightly for the positive economic impact this will have. So with that, I just very much appreciate your time, your consideration for this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephen Matic, is that right? Matuk, thank you. And just state your name for the record, please.
Stephen Matuk, I'm a resident of Elm Terrace, just north of where the project will be. There's just a couple things I want to state. Counsel for the petitioner said that he was sure that there was a lot of people that don't want to see this site developed. That's not true. Everybody wants to see something nice go up on that parcel. But 68 units, 68 families, 68 homes, with 22 parking spots, in a condensed area that holds currently the same size of the block that I live on, 20. They could have, in their first proposal, said, we're gonna build a 6,800 unit building, and then drop it down to 68 and say, hey, we dropped it 99%. I call BS. They were never gonna build those two buildings. You know, they did that to come down and say, listen, we compromised. And that's fine. Everybody's good with a compromise. But building 68 units in a small block with 22 parking spots, it's unacceptable. At least that's me speaking as a resident of the block just north of the development, and that's just my opinion. I don't have any questions, because I think they're very clear. You know, they're gonna do about 3 million in revenue from rent, and that's fine, great. But what does that do for the community? I didn't hear anything about developing, you know, maybe some park open to the community in that area.
Well, they are providing 2 green spaces for.
For their property, yeah.
For everybody in the community.
And that's fine, Chairman. Another thing is, that I found to be a little bit bothersome, is when they compare density to the surrounding area. You know, if you're gonna compare your density to a 6 or 8 unit building across the street, I can understand that as a selling point, but the density currently for where the school is 0. They're adding 68 residential units to the area. They're not tearing down current residential units to build a less dense residential development. So if they're gonna compare density, they gotta compare it to the number 0, not the number of 4 to 8 unit buildings across the street. Because right now, there's no residential units where that school is. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much.
I just wanted to ask the question for the follow-up. Is your, because you talked about wanting to see something nice there, you talked about the 68 units.
Yeah.
And you talked a little bit about the parking. Is the parking your principal complaint or concern?
The parking is one of my concerns.
Well, rank them
absolutely.
for me. Give me your top 3. What are your complaints or concerns?
Density, parking, and traffic.
Okay.
All 3 of those.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lisa Cleveland. Is there a Lisa Cleveland here, please? Before you begin, I'd like to, you've written down your presentation 1, and then Josh Gordon has presentation 2, and Ken Marley has presentation 3.
Correct.
Okay. Are you gonna make each presentation individually, or I can have you all 3 of you come up and make it collectively?
As long as
What
you
would you
don't
like to
confine
do?
us to 3 minutes.
That's fine. You got 9 minutes.
Well, I would remind you that Susan just brought up the letter from the community representing 95 signatories, so that would seem to provide a few more minutes for our group, 270 or more, if we're perhaps being fair to each signatory.
So, it's my understanding, so you wanna make all 3 presentations yourself, or you can have the other?
I'll make one, and the 2 additional presenters will follow.
Okay, can I have Josh Gordon and Ken Marley please come up then? I'm trying to make your presentation cohesive, kind of
We
flow.
appreciate that very much, as long as you allow us the time it takes to present.
Absolutely. Okay, you may start.
Thank you very much. first, John?
Sure.
No?
It's good.
Okay.
Let me know when you're ready.
I was assured by village staff that all presentations are downloaded to this computer. There's 3 separate presentations.
Oh, each of those presentations are different?
Yes, the 3 links with the 3 presentations.
The 3 PowerPoints?
Yes.
Okay. I'll go up to my office and put it on the G drive. You can start.
All right, well, could I ask you to step aside and I'll have someone else come up, you can, you didn't lose any time, okay?
Hey, Paul, presentation 1 is ready. I don't know if you wanna do them
Well,
all.
I wanna do get them all together, okay? Art Linsner, please. Mr. Linsner?
If I can speak from here, I would like
You'll have to speak over there to be recorded. Thank you.
My name is Art Linsner. I'm on Elm Terrace. One quick question of the panel there. If a zoning change is made, is that specific to this proposal, or is that separate? And if this proposal for some reason would not be accepted, the zoning change would stay and be available to future developers?
Counselor, would you wanna address that?
No, those don't work right now. Yes, if there's a zoning map amendment that's made, that would apply not to just this development, but all future ones, but the site plan would only apply to this development.
And that acceptance of the zoning change is not dependent on the acceptance of the project?
True, although it depends on the order in which it's called.
Okay. I would like to yield the balance of my time to the previous speakers.
Okay. Next, we have Mr. David Frieden, is that right? David? And would you give us your name for the record, please?
Yeah, I'm David Freer, and I've lived adjacent to the school for about 30 years. I have 2 paragraphs, total 2 minutes. Please listen. In 2009, the school had a plan. You looked at the plan and you put the kibosh on it. Your attorney at the time, Herb Dubrow, said he was very surprised by your vote. I said, why, Herb? That plan is hideous. It's grotesque. He said, yeah, it is, but you don't understand, Dave. They voted against the mayor. Well, today's plan is more hideous and more grotesque. I hope you show the same wisdom, sensitivity, and courage that you showed in 2009. Follow your precedent, kibosh this ugly plan. Paragraph 2 is something for you to think about. Many years ago, Skokie sold this property to educators. Skokie could buy it back. Skokie should buy it back. Green space in Skokie has never been more valuable. That's a quote from an appearance commissioner, and he's right. It's 2/3 of a block. It would make a beautiful little park with trees and grass and walkways. No sports, a children's playground already exists. Please remember, Skokie sold this property to educators, not bloodsuckers. Thank you for listening. I'm done.
Okay, Mr. Ali Khan, is that right?
Hi, my name is Ali Khan. Resident of Skokie. First time attending these type of meetings here, but some of the questions that I had for the plan, I guess the commission here is, I know they presented and they're asking for a zoning change. What is the main reason behind a zoning change if, as someone mentioned, that the R4 zoning already allows for this type of development? Gentleman right before me asked if, let's say you guys approve the zoning change, what happens if they don't pursue with the site plan and sell it to somebody else? Right? It's not contingent on anything that this will happen. What if 6 months later, this doesn't happen? And then there's a 600-story building or something, or 600-unit building. Something can happen. You guys don't have any control over that because you're signing everything away. So if this plan can still happen without, the zoning change, why not make it happen? The other thing people talked about, which I kind of find a little bit disturbing, is that it seemed like a quid pro quo, right? So you have the Erie Crown school being bought, going off the tax roll with the new building. Now, you want something back on the tax roll, so who are you guys working for? Is it the citizens of the community, or do you want more buildings and properties on the tax roll? So, I just wanted to...
The tax money benefits the citizens of Skokie.
Of course it does, but there's other uses for the building as well. That you could say that, and you could raise my taxes on my home and say, oh, it's benefiting the community. But that doesn't work like that, right? You can't raise everybody's taxes here and say, oh, it's benefiting the community, so let's raise the taxes. I'm sorry, but I don't agree with that.
That's understandable. The only thing I wanted to clarify is this property was, when the town was laid out by forefathers, this was laid out as not-for-profit school property. It was a public school prior to its acquisition by the private school of Erie Crown. So it's never been taxed properties. Now it would be. So that's
correct.
Not that you're not right or wrong, but it is now
Thank you for
moving
providing
from
that.
non-tax to tax.
Yes. Thank you for providing that clarification. That makes my point. Is, like the previous gentleman said, it was sold to educators from Skokie. Why doesn't Skokie buy it back or put it on the market and say, these are the uses for this building, you have to sell it as that use? There's a lot of community organizations who would have interest in buying this property. Now, if you allow for this zoning change, or if you're okay with that, what would happen is a buyer would come in and say, okay, fine, we're gonna buy this property, but they're gonna ask $100 million. No one's gonna pay $100 million, because they know what else they can do with the property with your help. So I think you guys should have that in mind when you're proposing or recommending that this zoning change go forward. So, and I have some articles that I pulled up here. One article actually that talks about Barry Seidel's development at 2845 West Belden Avenue. The site is therealdeal.com. I just briefly asked him if he was involved in that. He said he wasn't. So I'm just gonna read a little quick paragraph, noting that it could not be him, it could be somebody else. But basically it says, 2845 West Belden Avenue, near the California Blue Line Station. Inland, which is a company, took over the project in 2018 after Barry Seidel and Mark Ordower of Ogden Partners initially sought to develop the site in 2015. Multiple mechanics liens were filed by the subcontractors and contractors on the property during its construction, indicating there were payment disputes among the firms hired to build the project before Inland entered and switched general contractors. So this is a project, I'm not sure if it's the same people or not, but goes to show, we're an example, a builder proposes that they want to do X, Y, and Z, don't see it through. So.
But just as a point of information to that, if the hypothetical second or tertiary development as you're describing, they would all be required to go through the exact same process as this development. So the
Correct.
zoning change, yes, would create
But
the opportunity for that conversation to occur, but you're presenting it in such that based on a hypothetical zoning change that hasn't occurred yet, that a subsequent hypothetical development would have, leeway to just come in and bypass the process, which is not the case. They would still have to go before the community and the committee, the appearance committee, and then ultimately the village board.
Completely agree with you, but they wouldn't have to go through a zoning change.
Hey, Mike, Who knows? Okay. Thank you. Daniel Garden, is that correct? Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Hi, my name is Daniel Garden. I own and represent several long-term healthcare facilities here in Skokie. As we all know, staffing and finding employees for all local business owners in these current times is a difficult task, especially so for the healthcare industry. My company cares for Skokie community's most vulnerable residents, and finding employees, especially local ones, has been proving harder and harder. Any opportunity to bring more people to live within the community is one that could have a positive effect on staffing shortages, and not only help other businesses on numerous different levels, and is something, in my opinion, that we should be embracing and not fighting. Our company strongly believes new and attractive and well thought out housing in the community will greatly benefit not just my local business, but all local businesses across all industries within the village at a time they desperately need some assistance. Thank you.
And your
Thank you.
employees afford $4,000 a month?
Thank you. Lauren Gornecki, please. Okay, I'll let Lauren speak and we'll go with the presentation.
Hi, still Lauren Grodnicki. I want to start out by saying that it's true that this project is in line with the goal of the sustainability plan to have increased density of population. And as one of the people who was on the team that drafted that plan, like, I'm very familiar with it. One of the things that they keep touting, though, is that it's Green Globes certified in green. Green Globes is complete BS. I've said this to you before, and I said it to them, and I explained why before, so I won't take time on it now. The buildings that are along the main street are a sustainability nightmare. And the whole thing is actually going to really increase the impervious surface of that area. Right now, it's almost all green space, but it's going to be replaced with impermeable surface. So the buildings along Main Street are practically greenhouses, the way they showed in the renderings. There are ways to avoid that, but, you know, and I've mentioned to this developer before, I think it was this, no, it was a Tui and Linder. But there are ways to avoid that, and I'm happy to get in touch with them about that. Actually, I was just looking this up today for a different reason. There is this pervious concrete that they can use that lets almost all of the stormwater go down into the water table instead of running off onto the street. And flooding on Main is actually an issue, especially if you go a little farther east, where there are lots of storefronts that have just pavement in front. One of the objections that I have to the particular design of this development is that it's entirely enclosed, and aesthetically it feels like a burbclave almost. Like the broader community is not going to be able to use the green space there. They're not going to be able to use this clubhouse that they're touting. And instead of having this clubhouse, maybe they should have a covered parking structure with a green roof on top of it. And all of these townhouses have flat roofs. Let them put panels up there and green roofs. And yes, you have to broaden the walls a tiny bit, but they haven't even been built yet. So put green roofs up there, and that will also help to absorb some of the stormwater. And what we have to keep in mind is you can't look to the past for the amount of stormwater that we're gonna have to deal with. You have to look to the future and what's coming, and we should be building for resilience. Every building that you approve in the traditional style is locking us further and further into the past instead of letting us go into the future. Because remember, these houses are going to last for, 50, 100 years. We're building for the past here. We're not building for what's coming. And then I have some specific things about the design of the houses and how they should be built. They should have awnings to shade the windows on the south-facing windows, have triple pane windows, use mastic instead of Tyvek. Make sure that they're airtight, insulate the crap out of them, and then you'll do much better than much better than Green Globes. Get LEED Gold certification or higher. and have it be 100% electric. They said that the appliances will be electric, but does that include the stove? Does that include the HVAC system? You can make all of that be 100% electric. You make it airtight, and then have air exchangers. Use dual flush toilets if you really want to conserve water. Use only LED recessed lighting so that people can't even install their own incandescent bulbs. You're just, well, I guess if it's apartments, maybe it's, but anyway, yeah, have recessed LED lights. We just did that. It's like daylight in our kitchen now instead of the way it was before. And then require all electric landscaping equipment.
Okay, Laura, can you wrap it up?
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have this present, is it ready? All right. Is there gonna be one main spokesperson, or are you gonna take turns,
There are 3 distinct presentations.
okay. Could you give us your name, please, for the record?
Lisa Cleveland.
Thank you.
My name's Lisa Cleveland. I live at 4651
Could you
Elm Terrace,
direct the microphone towards you, thank you.
which is just north of the proposed site. We've gone through quite a bit of this information already, so we won't belabor the history of the site, but suffice it to say that we have a school now that will be removed, going to a residential development. I think we're pretty clear on what the existing designation is. We've gone through what the ratios are for, you know, site versus permeable surfaces, so we can skip past this. But what I think is worth revisiting and has been discussed, but is always worth seeing in a picture. We talked about the R4 to the south. I think what we've skipped over so far in some of the petitioner's information is the R1 designation to the west, north, and east of the site. This isn't something to be overlooked. We have significant single-family homes around the R1 portion of this site with numerous interested parties that would like to see this remain as it is, certainly not be transitioned to an R4 with, you know, a very stark transition to the surrounding area. I think this particular piece of information has been brought up already, though I think our interpretations are vastly different. We need to be in alignment with Skokie's comprehensive plan. I think we differ on interpretation there. Development trends in the area, we don't seem to be in alignment there either. And determination whether or not what's being proposed is more suitable for the area. And I think that's our third disagreement on this short section of the zoning ordinance. So there are a couple key pieces of information here from Skokie's comprehensive plan that are worth noting. The first statement, land that is not being used for residential uses should only be converted to a solely residential use if it is determined the site cannot support the non-residential uses. I think we've had a couple speakers so far on behalf of the community raise this issue, and I'm more than happy to raise it again. The second underlined portion looks at the driving forces for this development. I think we've already noted multiple times the tax considerations for this project. I think the petitioner has also noted some concerns with finances and the potential for profit on this project. Certainly those are fair, but are there any other driving forces behind this decision? And I think the vast number of community members here provide significant perspective that is maybe unquantifiable monetarily. We have long-term residents in this area that would be vastly inconvenienced by this new development, and that certainly bears just as much consideration as the others. Now, in publicly available information from the petitioner, this statement is noted. Increases in heavy retail, commercial, and residential uses in the area around the intersection of Main and Skokie Boulevard. So if we take a look back over 20 years ago, this is what it looked like in Skokie around that intersection. It's in the middle of the image here. I think we'll note similar small businesses in the area. Perhaps businesses have changed over, but those structures are still there for the same purposes as they were 20 years ago. and this is Skokie today. There really isn't much that's changed. So where are these increases coming from? It certainly isn't clear to the members of the community around this intersection and around this development where these substantial increases in residential, commercial uses come from. All right, so one of the key points of this development strategy and the zoning ordinance is, what was the construction like around the time of the original building on this site? Well, like we said in the earlier slides, the school was built in the 50s, and so was the developments around this site. You can see the dates of the buildings and their original construction here. What we're looking at here are smaller multifamily and single-family homes. We're not looking at the level of development, the density that we have. I think there were a couple numbers presented. Certainly, selection of certain properties is advantageous, but I don't think it represents the wider neighborhood view by picking a few buildings immediately around the school site. This is a community. It's not just a single development on a piece of land on a street in Skokie. This represents a neighborhood. To further that point, we've gone through and put together a figure for some of the building heights around the area. The school, even as it is still 2 stories, slightly taller than some of the buildings around us, but still fits in reasonably well with the area and takes up a small portion of the center of the site. Compared to what this new development will be, significantly taller structures through the preponderance of the site, vastly changing the character of the existing neighborhood. Now, there's been some talk about additional housing units needed in Skokie. It's certainly a valid concern, but I think we need to look no further than approved developments in Skokie just within the last 3 years. These developments on this map represent nearly 600 new residential units. So does the addition of 68 units far from the downtown, from amenities, from public transportation, is that really what Skokie needs? We've already established 600 new units in areas where people have access to the amenities that they need. So I won't belabor some of these summary points. We've gone through them numerous times tonight, but I think it's clear from some of the community members and the points that we've made that we are certainly not in favor of this rezoning.
I'll be brief.
Give your name, please.
Yeah. Hey, my name is Josh Gordon. I'll be brief here. In full transparency, I do have a 3-minute video that I do want to show you, but I'll go ahead and kick this off right now. Once I F5. All right, here we go. So again, here is the project. We've heard a lot about it. 68 units reduced. It is kind of hard to talk about this project without talking about the 192 units that is going up nearby. This is going to be it's going to be over 800 in gross income between these 3 units, and 192% increase. I'm sorry, a 250 increase of actual people in the area because we're replacing 2 schools. So, all right, what we want to show you here is just to show you the existing site juxtaposed against what is going to be there. This is your green space right here. Just going back, you got your 1,700 and your 1,900 square foot. That is just a little bit larger or smaller, I would say, than this room that you're in, which is going to be the park, the recreation area. Whereas right now, you've got almost 81,000 square foot of green space right now, reduced down to just over, let's call it 3,500 and round up, right? Okay? We got our R1 space. Purpose of this slide is to give you a sense of the exact density that is going to be put in that area right here. Again, the developer's been benevolent, come down from their 5-story building because it didn't get any approval or play, and down to the 70 units here. Still, look, we understand, right? It's going to get developed. The idea is, though, that this is so egregious, the previous plan was so egregious, so again, the density is a key concern here from the community, just to illustrate that, okay? We've talked also about permeable space as well. We're barely there we're not there. So we're not even at the permeability of the actual area. All that green space gone. All right, we got here, if it's a planned development, which it is not, the minimum lot width should be 25 feet per residential unit. No. Okay. One thing that we did see, we were shown this slide last week when they cooperated with the community to build support. They showed us a 33-foot And now it is 32 foot, so thank you for that 1 foot reduction. The car is no longer there because it cannot be, so we saw that tonight, that was cool. All right, and here we go. A lot of inaccuracies here between the sightline elevations. What's true? What's not? Okay, we're having a hard time of understanding what that is. Now, I'm just gonna show you a brief video, if I may. Yeah, this is to show you the privacy fence. That's your zone of privacy. We'll color this out here in just a second here, just to give you more in-depth idea of that as we go through. Just showing you again the sight lines, okay? So someone here in this red space will be looking way over that house, right? That's where that diagram is taken from. Section B. All right, and now, if I may, this will just be 3 minutes. Take you around the neighborhood just to show you the, so here is the existing structure, right? Elm Terrace here to the north. All right, this is a neighbor's backyard, and now here it is with the project, all those windows looking right back at you. 6 foot privacy fence. The green area is where privacy actually exists. The red space is non-private any longer. Looking out of the rental unit's window, not very private, but looking out at the other tenants of the unit towards where the garbage would go. Okay, this is across the street, across Kilpatrick. So again, just showing you kind of the invasive nature of the project. Look, we get it, we're not dense. We understand this is going to be zoned or built. Something will go there, right? It's gotta have the buy-in of the community though. And in this case, what happened? They showed us the exact same plan as they're showing you tonight with no alterations. Okay, here we are inside of the unit itself. Okay, now we're going across Main Street right here. This is as if you're on Main Street, what you're seeing. What you're missing is the setback right now of Dari Crown School. I think it's something set back like 40 foot. I don't know, it's an estimation. But I think now, I believe it's like 20 or 25 foot that it's set back. All right, so we're about midway through here, and then I'll be quick to wrap it up. Still on Main. I appreciate everyone's time. All right, so now we are across the street, Kenton. This is what you'll see, the view, okay? Again, the building, looking down towards Elm Terrace here. What we're illustrating here is just how dense this is and the lack of conformity with the community. All right, so you got your existing, you got with the new project, you got the fire lane, no parking. You got the park, 1,800 square foot. Here's our privacy again. We're showing you another home, right, that's gonna abut this property, directly impacted. Here it is today. Right, looking down, this is the current view. That's the biggest part of the school, right, the biggest offender, and this is what you'll get when this project is wrapped up. All right. So again, as we kind of play this out, we talked a little bit, there's a couple of things we don't really know about this project. If this project is to be rezoned, that is a pretty scary idea because we don't know a whole lot about Luz Associates, their financing or anything like that. We also saw a story just recently with the hotel here in town where now that is no longer gonna be built. Is that what we're gonna get if these guys lose financing? Right, like, these are some of the questions that we need to hear, right? What's the type of tenants that they're gonna wanna have? Is it gonna be pet friendly? Is it not? What's the management gonna be? Last week, Barry told me that his company is streamlined and that they do not have a leasing department or anything like that. But now he's saying, actually for this property, we are gonna have a management company on site. So, which is it? Is this a new model for the business? I don't know. But in summary, in short, right, too dense, traffic concerns, hell, safety concerns, right? 2 blocks away, you've had a attempted murder just last summer. So, I mean, what's the security gonna be, right? So, in summary, we just don't feel like this is something that's gonna fit in. And if it's gonna fit in, it's gotta be less dense. You've also got, you're hearing 57% down, but they're also getting 192 units that just went right through. So There's gotta be some compromise, and there wasn't really any compromise here made. Yes, questions?
Okay, if I ask a question, Chair?
Yes.
So I'm just curious because I'm hearing the specific conversation about density. I'm also hearing the conversation about height. I'm curious as to whether or not in your mind those two things are tied together. So I'll give a specific example. If the density is not necessarily tied to height, then for example, if there were single-family homes there, but of equal height to what is being proposed, would that also be a concern?
If it's a single-family home?
If
No.
it was a collection of
Yeah.
single-family homes, but they were of a similar height? Not talking about scale. I'm just asking a question. I was asking this gentleman, I'm sorry.
I would have no concern with that, single-family homes.
Okay.
Not the same density though, right? We're living in a housing crisis. It's great that these guys are gonna put housing out, right? But what we're actually missing is the stock of single-family homes that one can buy, not rent for almost $48,000 a year, right? Like, that's pretty extreme. If I was paying that, like, well. All right, anything else? All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
Let us know when you're ready, sir. Can we have your name for the record, please?
Oh, yes, Ken Marley, resident of Elm Terrace. I wanted to speak with you today a little bit to go through the plan review process, just so that, so the Plan Commission can be aware of the frustrations that the community has encountered in the planning stages, and also inform the community if they haven't been up to speed yet. How did we get here? That's the theme. How did we get here? The petitioner submitted to the Appearance Commission at the end of 2022. The initial hearing was heard on January 2023. This was their presentation. They came back on February 8th. There was a number of questions that the community raised and that the Appearance Commission raised. They did not address most of the community questions, and they did address some of the Appearance Commission questions, but no action was ultimately taken at that time due to opposition from the commission itself.
Go ahead, Arshana. Do you have anything to say? If you don't, that's fine.
I do not agree with the front, the 60 feet, yeah.
Julie,
Doesn't
do you
like
have
the
any
tower.
Well, I didn't think it was compatible last time, and I don't think it's compatible with the neighborhood this time.
Didn't like the towers.
Tom or Jay?
They also decided, basically last week, that the height of the building, to me, that is a unharmonious appearance. So I'm not in favor.
Didn't like the towers.
Yeah, I'm think that appearance wise, your submission is really good, but I think you need some changes. Maybe you can go for some lower height or something like that, you know, or maybe more greenery, green space and like that.
Okay, because I know that this won't pass tonight. And it's my suggestion that you guys work together to come to common ground. Does that make it logical sense?
And so, you know, I think we'll take your advice. I can also count heads and would ask that you continue this, and we'll have to talk with the property owners and both those who own this property and everything else.
They didn't. The Appearance Commission, as you just heard, recommended community outreach in face of their overwhelming opposition. The petitioner agreed to the chair's recommendation, but those talks were never held. Sorry, I thought I had it. Here we go. The audio is not working. I'll summarize it for everybody. The Appearance Commission chair outlines conditions under which it would make sense for this to come before Plan Commission first. That condition being that if the two sides cannot reach agreement, that perhaps it should come here for you to resolve the issue prior to Appearance having their input on the matter. Chairman Link also stated that he is unaware, if he was unaware at that time, If he's literally allowed to do that or not, that he would need to speak with a village attorney to determine whether or not a disruption of the normal flow of the review process is allowed. He didn't know, nobody knew in the room. You can't expect everybody to know all the rules, right? So again, just a couple of those key slides, asking for the feedback. If you guys can't come to agreement, I might say, and I don't know if I'm allowed to do this, it should go to planning first. I don't know if I have the right to do that. I have to talk with village council. So, you know, from the earlier meetings that we had, the public meetings, the petitioner had agreed to reach out to the community to attempt to develop a compromise plan. No outreach effort was made. There was an open house hosted last week that was a presentation of the material that they had presented tonight. That is not seeking the public's input. It's not taking their considerations into account. And the reduction from the 5-story towers to the frontage of 3-story townhouses is in direct response to Appearance Commission's ghastly response to what was put before them. The Appearance Chair stipulated advancement to Plan Commission should occur first, only if the two sides couldn't reach agreement. It's impossible to reach an agreement if you haven't tried to reach an agreement. And last, the Appearance Chair expressed doubt about procedural ability to go to Plan Commission first. There's been no announcement or notification in any of the Appearance Commission public documents. There is no announcement or notification of Village Council justification for upending the regular permit review order. In summary, the petitioner did not uphold their end of the Appearance Commission agreement. The conditions established by the Appearance Commission to go to Plan Commission have not been met. The legal justification for being here first has not been provided publicly. Why are we here? This is the last of the 3 coordinated presentations. I'm going to just give a little bit of a capstone of what we've discussed. The presentations tonight have strived to establish only 3 of the concerns shared by the community. The petitioner's site is ill-suited for R4 high-density housing. Even when the portions in the existing and even the portions in the R4, the existing R4, are inconsiderate of the neighbors. The plans as provided are internally inconsistent, and they push beyond the conventional limits of R4 zoning. This is all the more egregious because the petitioner is asking to rezone a low-density R1 to an R4 that pushes beyond R4 limits. Point 3, the petitioners have not followed the public directions provided by the Appearance Commission, and the manner by which we are now before the Plan Commission has not been appropriately communicated to the public. We went from February 8th until July 23rd. We heard nothing from the developers, we heard from the petitioner, we heard nothing from the village. We've had 2 weeks to scramble a response. That response is the letter that's been provided to you fine people here today, or by email earlier today and read into the record here today. That letter has been enjoined by 95 signatories who are residents of Skokie. Additional people have signed on to it who are former residents. They have not been included in that list. I only want to include in that list the people who have to live here and have to live with the decisions that you are entrusted to make. We're not saying don't build anything here. We're saying don't build this here. Don't build this as it has been proposed. Listen to the community, and please work with us in good faith. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to ask a question of the chair.
Yes.
But first, I'm going to muse out loud for a moment. As I understand the procedures in terms of the testimony that's given, you know, typically we try to curtail that testimony to a few minutes as indicated, and I think there's been some generosity there to give the opportunity for additional time to speak because of the complexity of the testimony, which is utterly appropriate.
Thank you.
I guess what I'm musing out loud is, given the fact that we have received some of this correspondence just tonight, we typically get this information in advance so that we can review it as we would you know, the reports that have been entered into the record, and given the level of complexity and sophistication of some of the concerns that have been raised, I'm curious as to whether or not, if others feel it could be prudent for us to table this conversation for 30 days so that we could receive in writing the various statements, concerns, and questions that have been raised, as opposed to us trying to ingest all of that information tonight and having the abbreviated testimony and further abbreviated opportunity for the initial presenter to respond to some of that which has been raised. So I'm not making a motion yet, but I guess I'm curious as to whether or not there is anyone else up here at the dais that would feel, as the way I'm leaning at this moment, that we need additional time.
Well, I feel you should make the motion first.
Gladly. I would like to motion.
We're not finished yet. We're not finished yet.
Okay.
With public comments. I understand, okay. Is there anyone
I don't
else
actually-
out there who
No
might
further
want to come
questions
up?
for me?
Last chance.
Okay, thank you very much.
Certainly, come up.
And now I want a motion to vote.
Hi, Ali Khan here. I spoke recently, but I just want to wrap it up in 30 seconds. I want to say thank you guys for listening to us, allowing us the opportunity to speak here. But like the previous presenter mentioned that, you know, we don't have enough time to kind of come with a coordinated response or digest this. You guys are all in your current roles because you guys want to serve our community. You guys are doing the best as you can, and you want to, I hope that you guys are thinking about this as anyone would their small business. You don't want something to be pulled over you. You want to vet this. You don't want a zoning change to happen and then it's not something that you expected. So I'm asking you guys to please think about this as your own business, own little baby, and then make the decision. So if you guys, I really like Peter, Commissioner Peter, what he was about to motion. I think we need to go in that direction, and I would hope someone can second that motion if he makes it.
Thank you. Okay, final speaker? Yes.
Yeah, sorry, I
Go,
didn't sign
go,
up.
no, please.
I'm Emmy Yamauchi, resident of Skokie. I don't really have a horse in this race per se, but I am concerned about the way affordable housing was discussed and the fact that this project is gonna be $4,000 a month rent. I would like to be able to say that, you know, employees, especially of the gentleman who's got the healthcare services, that, you know, maybe his employees would like to be able to live in Skokie, close to their place of employment. $150,000 is a fee in lieu to get out of allocating affordable housing with, you know, on-site, is a pretty cheap get-out-of-jail card, because in less than 4 years, the developer is gonna make his money back. So I would just ask also that affordable housing be considered, balance in the housing market so that we do not become a suburb of gated communities, divided between the haves and the have-nots, the haves with their clubhouse and individual wine cooling refrigerators. And I know, I don't really think it's funny. We're becoming, like we're living in little bubbles, gated communities that are amenity-filled. And seriously, do you really think that someone who can afford $4,000 rent a month is gonna be going to the 7-Eleven in the neighborhood? I don't think so. So I think we have to be really realistic about this. We wanna have a good mixed balance of housing, taking into account many of the concerns raised by 4600 Main Street group. But we also need to consider affordable housing, the balance of housing in Skokie, and how we can best meet those needs. So I would say we still need to have a serious comprehensive housing study done for the village, update the plan, get the housing subcommittee up and running, and try and have something that is logical, long-term, and that where we're not dealing with everything piece by piece. My last question, though, is On this particular project, though, has the sale of, has the sale of the property gone through, or is it contingent on approval of this project?
I'm not privy to that.
Okay, thank you.
By the way,
Uh-huh.
your remark about the 7-Eleven, regardless if a person is living in $1 million home and he needs a quart of milk, and the place is just a few blocks away, he'll walk a few blocks away to get a quart of milk.
He will, but he is not a consistent, reliable customer.
They don't,
That's the
that's
difference.
not the market. The market is for people who need something right away.
It may be, but that is not what I would call sustainable
Okay,
economic growth.
thank you.
I'd like to motion that case 2023.
Wait. Jeez. Well, you can, but I wanna give people a little chance to speak. Please? Yes.
She spoke.
What?
She did.
She already spoke.
Oh, I,
Two brief points.
okay,
Two brief-
I can
two
give
brief
you
points.
just a,
Susan Phillips, I know I spoke before. There was mention in one of the presentations about a lot of the development that's happened in the area recently and the number of units that are available and will be available with these development projects. My question is, when I look at that map, all those projects are in District 69. These projects are going to involve families. Is there any consideration to what kind of impact this is going to have on the schools? Just a question.
question.
Another thought I have is, Bobolink and Elm Terrace have very, narrow, very small areas to, get into and get out of their streets. Okay, Bobolink's one way, Elm Terrace is basically just, behind the school loop. You can either get in through Kenton
Yeah,
or
yeah, I'm
Kilpatrick.
aware of that.
Would there be any consideration, no matter what kind of project is developed on this 4600 Main property, would there be any consideration for permit parking for Bobolink and Elm Terrace, and possibly even Kenton and Kilpatrick too along that stretch?
Not at this time.
Okay, I just envision we're gonna be
Yeah,
the
I understand.
default
Okay.
overflow parking for
Okay.
whatever development happens.
All right. Finally, I'm gonna close the floor for opinion, and Commissioner Oosley.
I would like to motion that cases 2023, 15, 16, and 17P be deferred for a period of not less than 30 days, that during that 30-day period, that all interested parties would submit in writing through the appropriate channels any commentary, concerns, questions, presentations, or other information they would like considered with regard to these cases, and that the cases would be considered at the next regularly scheduled Plan Commission meeting subsequent to that 30-day period.
Could you make that date specific?
I don't have the schedule in front of me, but if someone can advise me as to what the regularly scheduled meeting is, that would be 30 days from today.
The first Thursday in September.
Probably September 7th.
September 7th.
So amending my statement to specify September 7th?
No, you can continue a case.
Second. We have a second?
Can I make a comment on the motion? Is that okay?
You can make a comment on the motion.
It's been moved and seconded, so now it's
Yeah,
open for
yeah.
discussion.
I would just suggest that it be modified to encourage communication between the petitioner and some citizen group relative to the project.
Okay, we have a second.
Second.
Who's that?
Me.
Let's see. Okay. Call for the vote for the postponement. Commissioner Osley?
Aye.
Commissioner Scott Berman?
Aye.
Commissioner Franklin?
I'm not sure.
So pass for the moment.
Commissioner Gupta?
Aye.
Commissioner Jeff Berman,
Aye.
Commissioner Matei.
Aye.
I vote nay.
I was
Commissioner
gonna vote
Franklin?
nay as well.
Okay. Well, the motion passes. We can postpone this meeting again to September 7th. Okay.
Could I encourage, now just speaking, now that we voted, could I encourage not only the groups to get together and different groups to submit in writing all of their positions, but not then to repeat them again at the next meeting? We've heard lots of presentations tonight. I don't think any of you want to repeat again, but I would like to see them in writing so that I could weigh the equities between what the community has suggested, what the developer has suggested. So as much writing as possible, as much submission as possible, with as little, I would hope, discussion at the next meeting. That's just a comment. It doesn't, it has no force of law.
Can I bother commission with one last comment?
Sure, go ahead.
The community very much appreciates the continuance of this for the 30 days and the next, and hearing at the next meeting. I would like to say to the petitioner, we welcome your outreach and engagement with us. We maintain an email list of 150 Skokie residents. We've submitted 95 names tonight. We have plenty of names, plenty of people with opinions. We presented similar information to you in February, but let's bury the hatchet and get together. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make a final comment about this case. Now, I've been chairman for quite some time, and I've seen cases that have gone through, even though we've had residents who opposed it. I just want to tell you that even though those cases went forward, all the comments that those people made later on reflected on projects, decisions that came up further down the line. So don't think that your comments tonight have gone unheard or have been kicked aside, okay? Next case.
Mr. Chair, can I?
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll hold my comments till the next meeting.
Yes.
But I want to make sure I understand correctly. I believe both you've closed public comment previously, and that, heck, I'm not sure if you've officially on the record continued it to the next meeting. You voted for a motion to go, just to continue it. If you feel that's
You've
covered.
already made your presentation, we've heard the comments, we're just postponing so that the community can give more input and perhaps develop a
But the
dialogue.
attorney wants to know, Paul, did
Yes.
we in fact continue this
Continue, just so
officially?
we have to
Yes.
put public notice again.
Yes, we did.
And obviously, as we have already done, and I'm sorry, there's some feeling by people that we have not, that we've already done, we will certainly meet with the community again. We appreciate your review of this. I have a lot of response, and a lot of it was said tonight, but given the hour, we'll respond at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Gershon. Can we move the other two cases to the
17th?
17th? Okay.
You need a motion.
I need,
Wait, wait,
I'll make that motion.
no, listen.
Let's do it properly.
I have to do it properly. So the next two cases that we have,
A little louder, Paul.
let them clear up.
Can't afford it.
This doesn't change the neighborhood completely.
I don't have a problem with the concept. It is awfully dense, and I'm not,
I don't want some apartment building and houses, look at it. Right, maybe
be back there. Ten or nine houses in there? And so by changing it from this way to this way,
But then by grabbing flow, it comes back out. So if you wind up with a
Okay.
And frankly, all this foliage takes care of a lot of things. And you know what, if need be, you can put more foliage in.
Order, please. Next two cases are village-related cases. Case 2023-18P, a zoning chapter amendment. The Village of Skokie is requesting amendment to Chapter 118 zoning, article off-street parking and loading facilities to prohibit new curb cuts and front yard driveways on lots that abut or access the public improved alley. And case 2023-19P, zoning chapter amendment, basically discussing the drive-through facilities. Commissioner Franklin?
May I move that 2023-18P and 2023-19P be moved to our next meeting on August 17th?
Do I have a second? Okay. Call for the vote. Commissioner Osley?
Aye.
Commissioner Berman?
Aye.
Commissioner Franklin?
Aye.
Commissioner Gupta?
Aye.
Commissioner Berman?
Aye.
Commissioner Matei?
Aye.
Now vote aye. Okay, any other business before the commission? I see none. This meeting's adjourned. Thank you for your attendance.
Nice cheering, Paul.
Yeah, good.
Theo is